A lot of hosts don't realize that the way that Airbnb is prioritizing reviews has changed dramatically recently. And even a single 3-star review or multiple poor reviews can have a massive impact, not only on your visibility, but we've even heard from some hosts where specific listings are starting to be taken down, even when the rest of the portfolio is amazing. So, this is something that you must be paying attention to. And we are going to be talking about how to earn 5-star reviews on today's episode. Welcome back to Get Paid for Your Pad. I am Kaye, here with Eric Moeller, the CEO of Freewyld and Freewyld Foundry. What's going on, Eric?
Hello, hello. Solid intro. I love it. To what you just said, it's changing so fast and we're seeing how it's impacting listings. And I don't think the industry really understands how fast it's moving. So I'm excited to dive into, what we're learning by working with our clients and then with our properties as well.
Yeah, exactly. For those tuning in for the first time, we have our cabin side of the business where we operate Freewyld cabins. We have 4 amazing cabins in Idlewild, California. I don't know if they're all currently, but there have all been at various points in time guest favorites. We've been super hosts for years and years and years. And then now we also have the amazing opportunity and gift of working with well over 30 operators that are all generating more than $1 million or more. So we're handling revenue management for them, and reviews are such a big piece of that. If your reviews are going to poo, then you're just not going to make the money that you are expecting on your portfolios. So I think one of the first things that you need to do is to market your property in a way that's going to earn you good reviews. So can you talk a little bit about our strategy when it comes to our listings and our photos? Like, how do we set the stage and set the expectation right up front to start seeding the fact that we're going to get a 5-star review from each guest?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is meeting expectations. So we see a lot of listings that look good, but when you arrive, they're just kind of falling short of the way that they're marketing the properties and the photos, all of that. Everyone has had that experience. And as you start growing in this industry, it gets harder and harder to meet those expectations and keep up with all the moving parts. But I would say that's the most important thing. And that's the one thing that we're always trying to do in Freewyld is push forward from our listings look amazing. We could talk about like how we market it and like our process of like photos and lifestyle shots and colorings and design and, all that stuff. But our goal is as a guest is arriving, we want their expectations to be blown out of the water, right? As far as like the experience matches what they were thinking it was going to be. So like, for example, I stayed a couple of weeks ago, rented this big house off of Airbnb from a pretty big property manager. I think they have about 500 listings and nationwide. Beautiful house. Invested a lot of money. They did a great job marketing it. But as soon as we arrived, I noticed that my expectations weren't met, right? Like there was little things overlooked. When we're asking the question, it was a family trip. So my mom was asking like, hey, do you guys have hair dryers and irons? And the responses that we were getting like, no, sorry, we don't have that at this house. No, sorry, we don't have a coffee maker at this house. No, we don't have this at this house. And we arrive and they had all of that plus more. And there was like a breakdown between customer service and what was actually happening in the property. And we see this a lot. So one thing that we're working on releasing as far as our next service in Freewyld Foundry is a listing optimization service, because we're noticing that this happens a lot across. Like once you start getting more listings, especially if you're managing other people's properties, it's so hard to get all the details of the properties recorded, organized, and then implemented into your marketing and your customer service. And that experience that I had at this property in Pennsylvania was that exactly. It's beautiful property. They did a great job launching it, but they missed the mark with educating their customer service on what was in the house. And then once I got into the house, you can see that little things were overlooked. And they were everything from missing check-in, from having my family sit outside for an hour and a half as the cleaners were finishing, which is terrible. But then also pushing us super, super hard to check out early when we were leaving, and we have kids and all this other stuff. And just the whole experience wasn't great, right? I still left them a 5-star review. I gave them private feedback on all this. But at the end of the day, it was like all these parts were breaking down, right? And the reason why I mentioned the listing optimization service is One of the biggest things that we see with our RPM clients is as we are scaling revenue, we notice that the listings have not been met. They're not being updated. They're not using all the features that we know that you need to use to rank high on Airbnb. And it's just because A, they don't have the data to put in there. And then B, they don't have the time to implement or the team to implement all those changes on the listing. So I think to answer this is a long response to this first question is like expectations, right? Or surpass expectations. You don't want to fall short by either not having the data. If you go into building a beautiful listing, have all the details lined up and have it be accurate and educate your team on how to communicate that. And then think through, actually in our mastermind this Thursday, we have someone coming in to teach a customer journey, a client journey, or a guest journey, I should call it. So all those touch points of when a guest is arriving to your property, from when they check in to when they check out, all those different touch points of thinking through that and meeting those expectations. So you don't have to ask for the 5-star review. You just know that it's going to come. So we can break all this down, but I think that's the very first thing. Know your properties, build beautiful listings, meet the guest expectations when they go to check in.
Oh my gosh, there's like 7,000 things I could comment on there. That was a masterclass. I think the paradox with this is it's not about having the nicest property, or it's not about having the most luxurious property. It's actually more about accuracy. When people are surprised in a negative way, that feels really bad. That feels like we lost something, as opposed to we're expecting not to have it. There's an amazing brand that I follow. It's called Camp Wandawega. They're in southern Wisconsin, a couple hours outside of Chicago. I haven't been there yet, but they're such a brand inspiration. They have what they call the manifesto of low expectations on their website. Before you even book with them, like they highlight this manifesto of low expectations. And in it, they comment, they're like, our bathrooms have not been updated since the Hoover administration. This is no frills. Rustic. This is what you're coming to us for. I thought that was such an interesting case study because again, it's not about being the best. It's about being accurate so that when people show up, they know exactly what they're getting into. So you can almost do too good of a job at marketing your properties if you are making it seem better than it's going to be when your guests are there.
Yeah, to that point, we have one client where they're in a market that's doing really well, but their properties are falling behind on guest reviews because the promotion of their property on Airbnb is really like the photos look great. Everything seems like they're themed properties, but when you get in there, the execution of the theme, air quote theme, falls really, really short to where if it's like, and I'm making this up as far as like the theme, if it's say a jungle house or something like that, and you have photos of like all the greenery and the jungle, come stay at the jungle home in San Diego, and you get there and it's a picture of a jungle on the wall and everything else is just a regular house. That is not the experience guests are looking for. So they fall short of that. And everybody knows this, right? It's like buying a product off of Amazon. You have one expectation, and then when you receive it, it's completely the opposite of what you were thinking. And it's just a terrible experience. So that's the biggest thing is like collect the data, build out accurate marketing and expectations. So I think that's one of the most important parts. Meet expectations, know your properties, communicate about the positives, about the negatives, and then really understand the product that you have and what you're selling to your guests.
Just as a little add-on to this discussion, I think all of the intention that we put into the design of Freewyld has a massive positive impact as well. People can feel that intention when you walk into a space. So when things feel cohesive and they feel quote unquote right in a space, I think that goes a long way as well. Like in this foundation building stage, when you're actually setting up the property, if you take that extra time and that extra investment to just make it feel amazing, that can also kind of smooth over some of the potential like rough bumps. I mean, we've had guests, for example, complain about spider webs that show up. We're in the forest, like we're in the mountains. It happens sometimes, even when we're turning over these cabins really frequently. Like sometimes there's just something that's not perfect. But have to think that because it just feels so good to be in a Freewyld cabin, people are a little bit more forgiving of that. And we're very grateful that they are.
We communicate that too. Right? As people are checking in, we communicate like, hey, you're in the mountains. You're going to see ants. You're going to see critters, all that. We do everything possible to keep them out. But at the end of the day, no matter where you are, if you're in the mountains, you're getting spiders, you're getting little critters, you're like all of that sneaks in. So just let us know and we'll come take care of it, right? Type of thing. Yep. For the most part, people are cool with that. But we definitely see the people coming out of the city are not used to this at all. And, you just have to over communicate that side of it. I think that leads into the next thing too, is like, obviously you got to meet or surpass expectations, but it's really like really connecting with your guest as they're there. And I say this all the time, like everyone is trying to use AI and all that to automate the entire guest experience. And it's like you're serving somebody. Just imagine if you went to, the restaurants are popping up now where like you go into a McDonald's and you can just order the food off of a screen and then just pops out of the wall. And it's like, that's not a great experience for 99% of people out there, right? Like if you go to a restaurant, you want the server to connect with you. You want them to be personable. You want them to know the product. If there's a challenge, you want them to take care of it. While we were at IMN, we were staying at this new hotel and the restaurant was probably a month or two old. And we ordered a couple of cheeseburgers and it was last night there. So we're celebrating and having some good food, some fun food. And the server took forever to deliver the food. And long story short, he had to deliver it over 3 times because he just kept messing up the order. The kitchen undercooked it, overcooked it, brought us the wrong food, all this stuff over and over again. So I brought this up to the server. The manager came over, obviously apologized, said, hey, we're learning. This is my responsibility. Dinner's on me. Let me make this right for you. Right. And they went back. The food came back amazing. It was great. It was not the most pleasant experience for us. But then he covered the entire experience and it made it very personable. He sat down, he talked to us. He's like, hey, we're doing our best. This is the challenge and all this stuff. And I was like, this is freaking awesome. Like we had a breakdown here where I was getting heated. I was like, come on, guys, it's a freaking cheeseburger. Let's just dial this in. It's very simple. Cheeseburger, no bun, and salad. Please bring me that. They kept running into challenges, right? But my point of bringing this up is like the manager made the point of recognizing, okay, we keep running into this challenge. Let me sit down and connect with these individuals. We can do the same thing in our cabins, right? And it doesn't have to be when there's a challenge. It could also just be when someone is celebrating. We have guests that send us messages halfway through, just letting you know that we're having a great time. Awesome. What are you guys doing? What are you experiencing? We try to build a connection with them so then it feels more than just an Airbnb. Does that make sense? We notice the difference between the people that book on freewyld.com versus Airbnb. There's a different connection to the brand that they have. And if they're coming in through Airbnb, we're trying to build that personal connection. And that's going to lead to them, just like what I did in that house in Pennsylvania. I left a 5-star review because they really did a good job. They didn't do a great job. But then I sent them a private message afterwards to like, hey, this is what I noticed. This is where I think you can improve and so on and so forth. So connect with your guests or communicate, over connect with them. And then if there's a challenge, unreasonable hospitality and extreme ownership all the way through.
100%. There's such a difference as a consumer, as a guest, when somebody's like, hey, we're human too. If anything doesn't feel quite right, just let us know and we'll fix it versus we're earning your 5-star review for your utmost satisfaction. Like even just looking at the voice of all of your communication can be really powerful in eventually generating more of these 5-star reviews. It's important. And this kind of reminds me, I don't know if this is super relevant, but it reminds me of the brand experience of ordering from DoorDash, which is all about convenience, all about almost impersonalization. And there's situations where you want that. That feels like Airbnb in a way, but where we're trying to take our brand is more similar to like a Ritz-Carlton, where you feel seen, heard, and appreciated every time that you come into contact with us. You're so right. Like guests have a little bit different expectations when they're coming from the OTAs versus direct. And it's really interesting to see. Yeah. Another key piece of earning 5-star reviews is to deliver not just the basics, but to think about quote unquote magic moments that you can sprinkle throughout their experience. And I would love to dive into our wild mode experience, but I do have an example here that I'll kick us off with. It's not always about giving them gifts or spending more money or upgrading more amenities. Sometimes it can just be as simple as giving them inside information that feels like they belong. So, for example, we like to tell our guests that the hour right before sundown in Idlewild is called pink hour because the whole mountain range that surrounds our cabins turns pink from the sun going down. And I feel like that's such a magical moment when you're there that doesn't cost anything, literally $0, but just communicating that to guests so they can be in on that local secret and make sure that they experience that while they're there can be something that's incredibly magical and emotionally resonant and help us earn that amazing experience and ultimate review. What are some other examples of things that we've implemented in Freewyld?
Yeah. So actually, to borrow something from one of our clients, they do that quite often. And it's a very personable outreach where depending on what's happening in their they have all their properties in one market. So depending on what's happening in that marketplace, they will send a personal message to all of their guests like, hey, by the way, this weekend there's the blues festival that's happening down the block. Highly recommend checking it out. By the way, this new restaurant just opened up here. Why don't you go check that out? So whatever's happening in the marketplace, whatever's constantly happening, they're updating their guests on it. And that is building that connection and that personable connection through the host and the guest. So, and that doesn't take a lot of time, that doesn't take a lot of effort. It just takes some research, a little bit of a system, and then somebody on the team to communicate with everybody. And that just builds that personable connection, which is really powerful. For us, one thing that we're working on now is understanding those touch points for our guests and what they're looking for. So we mentioned this in the past before. We haven't fully implemented this. We're doing this now where our checkout we promote is at 10 a.m. for every single checkout. But we, without a doubt, every single stay, we get the request, hey, can we have a longer checkout? A later checkout. We already know it's coming. I'm getting sick of us saying no, we can't do that. And we had it for a little bit inside of our messages and in our listing that we don't offer late checkouts. And I'm like, man, this just doesn't feel good. I keep saying no. Like the team just keeps saying no to our guests. That doesn't feel good. So one thing that we're implementing now is like, we already know that that's happening. If we can get them out by 10, that's great. If they leave by 10, that's amazing. That gives our team some extra time. But we're already scheduling our cleaners for 11 to enter into our properties at 11. And we'll communicate the day of or the night before to the guest, hey, by the way, I'm going to issue you an extra hour. Take your time tomorrow, check out if you need it. It's there. Our cleaners will be there at 11. It gives a bit more of a overcoming that objection. And then we also draw that line of saying our cleaners will be there at 11. However, we're giving you an extra hour. So take your time. Right. So just that little thing. Now we don't have to say no anymore. So if they ask like, hey, can we have a noon checkout or 1 p.m.? It's like, unfortunately, we can't meet that, but I can extend it to 11 for you. Here's that extra hour. So my point of bringing that up is like, that's a objection that we're overcoming, an attention point that we're overcoming with our guests, and we're building it into our systems, scheduling it with our cleaners and our team, and then we're positioning it as a value add to the guest. And we've done this a few times. The guests have freaking loved it. And it's been easy for us to do that. So little touch points like that, I think, are really, really powerful. And that builds a positive memory, regardless of how their experience goes. It's just like, here's the extra value add for you guys.
Yeah. When it comes to the psychology of memory and what people actually remember, it's often the first experience. So the start of a experience, the end of experience, and then whatever is the emotional high point in between. So really paying attention to the check-in and check-out process is incredibly important as STR entrepreneurs. And I love that we're doing that for our guests now.
One thing I want to mention too is that we've learned from all these different portfolios, and we might have mentioned this in the past, is right now specifically on Airbnb, portfolio ratings is very, very important for rankings of all your listings. So 4.8 is the absolute bare minimum that you have to be in your portfolio. So you may have 99% of your properties doing extremely well and a handful of properties that don't do well and it's dropping you below 4.8. Those handful of properties are affecting your entire portfolio's ranking, regardless of how well they're doing as far as 5-star reviews, all of that. So the reason I bring this up is we did a revenue report for a property management company. They had over 60 properties. Their profile was about, I think it was like 4.7 something. And Jasper was able to see that all of his air quote top performing properties were underperforming compared to market comp sets in his market. And we believe that it's attached to just a handful of his properties that are affecting his entire portfolio. And I asked him, like, why do you have these on here? Like, why keep them? Well, they generate some money and it looks good to have this amount of listings. I'm like, yeah, but it's negatively affecting your entire portfolio. So cut those. Your other properties will increase because you're getting 5-star reviews on all these other properties, and you'll be able to go out and find some new clients. Reason I bring that up is I think as we're looking at 5 stars across each individual listing, you have to pay attention to your portfolio performance, and 4.8 needs to be the bottom floor all across your portfolio. So obviously we want to get up as high as possible on that, but just keep that in mind for everyone who's listening.
I love that. Great specific advice, especially for our property managers. No reason to be carrying around dead weight, especially when it's impacting everything else. So one thing that we have seen a lot of value from is actually post review. So when a review comes in, it's this constant feedback loop from all of your guests that are staying with you. And our team reads all of them and makes changes and improvements to the overall experience for all of our future guests and hopefully for repeat guests as well. Do you want to talk about the coffee debacle?
Sure. Yeah, let's do it. Which part? Because there's a lot that goes into that. The stolen coffee pot, the lack of coffee. These are all small touch points that are super solvable for us, but we didn't notice the pain point to the guests until we started picking up the reviews. So essentially we had, I'll let you lead it. Which part do you want to talk about there?
Okay. So we received several reviews, and I don't remember specifically if they were 5-star or if they dinged us a star for this. I know for sure that we got one on Google that was complaining and just lamenting on the fact that we did not provide complimentary coffee. So we had a French press in the property since day one, but we didn't provide beans from the start. It was just one more operational thing that we hadn't quite figured out yet. So we didn't implement it. We knew that we wanted to, and we knew how that we wanted to, but it just took the time of setting up the system. But it took seeing those reviews a few times come through. We're like, we need to take action on this now because it's definitely impacting people's overall experience, even though it's a relatively small detail, but because people were expecting it from their experience in hotels or whatever, it was really, really important. So reading reviews, seeing what common themes come up can be a really great way to do this continuous improvement loop. Do you want to add anything to that story?
Yeah. What I learned too, because like when I was designing Freewyld, my idea behind this was coffee is such an important part, especially for me, like especially being in the mountains at a cabin, like waking up in the morning, having a coffee by the fire is like one of the greatest experiences for me. So it's such a like sacred experience in these cabins. So I wanted to create something special. And the whole idea behind Freewyld, slow down, disconnect, be present, all of that. And we have a studio, 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and a 3-bedroom. And each one, we had a different type of coffee experience in there, right? So the smaller units had a coffee press, and then we had some pour overs for the other units, and a coffee machine for the bigger unit. And we realized that the guests from Airbnb, again, for them to buy into our brand experience is so much more difficult than someone booking through our website. Someone coming to freewyld.com most likely found us through Google or Instagram. So they're aware of our brand. They're aware of that experience. Coming off of Airbnb, most likely they booked it because it looks really freaking cool in the mountains. It's a beautiful property, great reviews, right? So I want to stay there. The wild mode is a secondary experience to Airbnb guests. And this is something that I'm recognizing now. Like I'm coming to this conclusion over the last like month or so. So anyway, we had Someone stole one of our coffee pots, which was okay. Why do that? That's insane. And then the coffee press, we kept like, people didn't really understand how to use it. And like Airbnb guests were putting it on the stove and burnt one, set one on fire, melted another one. So we're like, what is happening here? And I had to kind of dial back my expectations and recognize we got to make this experience super easy for guests to just be able to show up and use it, and without having to educate on the experience. And then two, not providing coffee. I didn't want to provide crappy coffee to
Right.
people. And there's like amazing coffee shops in Idlewild. So we eventually put together, we found a roastery in Idlewild, which is crazy that exists. It's like right down the block from us. And we put a deal together where he's making custom style Freewyld coffee for our properties now. So now we're investing into it. It's a cool little experience. They come in these little branded bags, and they're fresh. They get dropped off every 2 weeks. And we have a whole system now on every guest gets a bag and so on and so forth. But we had to replace all of like the fancy stuff with just coffee machines that work and super simple to figure out. Because what I recognize, it's like, okay, you look at Bolt Farm Treehouse, Bolt Farm, they have this really cool, like most of their units are for like 2 people. So they have this really cool coffee experience that they create, and they have instructions that you follow. Part of their listing, the whole thing. And I wanted to recreate that. But what I recognize is like most of our guests are coming through Airbnb right now. They just want to have good coffee in the morning. So we just solved that problem. And I think the reason why I'm sharing so much about this is the expectation of brand building, and then recognizing where your marketing channel is and who your clients are coming from, right? So as we increase our direct bookings, which is, by the way, we got to talk about maybe on another episode how well our social media is doing right now, because that's driving an incredible amount of direct bookings. Those clients, those guests are going to our properties for the wild mode experience. But most of our guests are coming from Airbnb. They just want a simplified coffee experience. So anyway, that's a whole thing. It was a tension point for our company that just took us a couple of weeks to kind of solve. And now people are loving it. We don't have to worry about that anymore. It's in place. It's moving forward. And now as people are booking, we now are trying to educate them on the wild mode experience before they even arrive and deliver that whole thing.
Exactly. And maybe your reviews are showing you something different. Maybe your sheets are uncomfortable. Maybe your beds aren't very comfortable. Maybe it's hard to open the front door. Whatever it is, the clues are probably already there, especially if you're an experienced operator and have been doing this for a while. It's just up to you to take action on that so that you're reducing friction and adding more of those magical moments for every single future guest. So it's a really amazing opportunity. Can you think of other common mistakes that we haven't covered yet that really impact people's reviews?
Yeah, I think the biggest opportunity of growth for outside of what we just talked about is like the hospitality side of really connecting with your guests and not relying fully on AI automations to communicate. Like that's the biggest opportunity, because once you build that connection with people, they will be able to overlook the challenges and, just like I did, give feedback privately versus publicly. Outside of that, the hardest part is developing out your systems and maintaining those systems with your team. So we just got a 4-star, to be 100% transparent. We just got a 4-star review on one of our most popular cabins, which we typically just get 5 stars on, but we got a 4-star because we had only 1 fork in the cabin. Why do we have only 1 fork? No idea. Why our cleaning crew didn't update that and inform us? We have no idea. And in worst case scenario is it impacted the guest experience, and we heard it from the guest, not from our team. So right there, we're like, okay, what is happening? We have a whole closet full of supplies that you could pull from. Why are people stealing our forks is a whole nother conversation, but they're cool forks. They're really awesome forks. But my point is, what I recognize is like, we got that 4-star review because of a breakdown of our internal systems. It's like, okay, things go missing, but our team should be trained on noticing it and having the ability to take action to fix it immediately. Didn't take action on it or communicate it to us. So those are 2 main friction points in our business to solve next. So anyway, I think lastly is like asking for the 5-star review is really important too. I don't believe in those little signs that you see throughout the properties. But I think at the end of the day, it's like, hey, if you believe that we deserve that 5-star review, that really helps, please leave us that review. because we're going to be doing the same. Lastly, on top of this is respond to all of your reviews. So 90% of the revenue reports, audit reports that we do for potential clients for RPM, 90% of their reviews, no one is responding to. Airbnb is really pushing engagement on their platform. So when you get a 5-star review, respond to it immediately. Just have somebody on the team, get a tool, whatever it is, but just respond to it, because that will help your overall Airbnb health, if you will, to drive more awareness, more bookings, which lead to more reviews.
All amazing points. As Eric mentioned, by the time we're publishing this episode, yesterday we will have hosted a mastermind session. I'm forgetting his name. Can you remind me? Is it Nathaniel?
Yeah, Nathan Woods.
Nathan Woods, CEO of Beloved Hospitality, is going to be teaching our mastermind how to map out the guest journey so that you can be really intentional about creating these magic moments, about reducing friction, doing all of the things that can earn you a 5-star review. Obviously, you missed the live call if you're listening to this now, but all of our mastermind calls are recorded, and we have some incredible guests and topics that are coming up in the mastermind. So if you are in the process of scaling and growing your Airbnb short-term rental business, it is the room that you want to be in. And we would love to have you there. Little plug there. Anything else that you want to share news-wise before we log off?
How do they find the mastermind? Where do we go for that?
Mastermind is on freewildfoundry.com /mastermind. And if you have any questions about it, please reach out to me or Eric. I'm Kaye at freewyld.com, and Eric is Eric at freewyld.com. We'd be happy to answer any questions, share what is coming up in the mastermind, and help you decide if it's a good fit for you and your business.
That's right. Let's just professionalize as much as possible, build systems, recognize that being an entrepreneur and a CEO is just constantly solving problems all the time for your business, your client, the market, your team, everybody. And until you decide to exit that game, that's going to be the game forever. So regardless of what comes up in your reviews, just like how we got a 4-star review for having one fork in there, don't take it personal. Look at that as an opportunity to build systems and solve the next problem so it doesn't happen again. We're never going to have a coffee problem again, or get a negative review for coffee in our cabins again, because we built the systems and trained the team. Now the next thing is to make sure that, these little items are communicated and solved quickly. Just wanted to share that your reviews are a reflection of your properties and your business. That's extremely, extremely important to know. So if you're getting negative reviews, don't blame the guest. It's not you're attracting bad guests into your property. It's that you, as the business owner, has some room to improve your systems, your expectations, your product, all of that. So I think we leave it there. Boom.
Such a great growth mindset. Thanks so much, Eric. Appreciate you.
Awesome. Thank you, Kaye. See you everybody.